I want to address the human rights violations surrounding the Dakota Access Pipeline issues in the unceded territory of the Great Sioux Nations protected by the 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty. Also, the rule of international law requiring free and prior informed consent is in violation by the United States regarding the Dakota Access Pipeline issue. What happened?
No, we already switched.
Yes.
What happened?
Esta tarde me referiré al artículo 10 de la Declaración de las Naciones Unidas sobre los derechos de los pueblos indígenas y al tema 10 sobre el desorden de los derechos humanos indígenas. Ya
We have the floor. International, native, traditional, interchange. Have the floor. Excuse us. We have something to say too. This is wrong. Excuse me.
We just got cut off.
That was wrong. We are here. We also have a treaty. We have the Peace and Friendship Treaty, 1787, Morocco Treaty. Come on, let's get there here.
Monsieur Maxime Belandia, est-ce que vous voudriez les séparer en plus avec
There was the United States and you're based on two corporations, two charter corporations. No, I'm not going to be quiet. I'm tired of us being quiet. I'm tired of our people being hurt. I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of the revolving door. It's wrong. You said you honor treaties, then honor the treaty. You talk about these treaties. Our people are dying.
Maintenant, vous avez la parole, madame.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I want to address the human rights violations surrounding the Dakota Access Pipeline issues in the unceded territories of the Great Sioux Nations, which is protected by the 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty. Also, the rule of international law requiring free and prior informed consent is in violation by the United States regarding the Dakota Access Pipeline issue. I want to share with the United Nations how the United States validates these human rights violations and the mechanisms they use to implement these human rights violations, because you've never heard it before. The first mechanism, called the Doctrine of Discovery, is a tool used by the United States Supreme Court to give themselves adjudicatory jurisdiction to decide all legal matters in indigenous nations, peoples' territories. And second thing it does is it reduces our status as an international actor to that of a domestic dependent nation illegally. However, the doctrine of discovery comes the concept of aboriginal title, which expresses that all natural resources, including minerals, are collectively owned by the indigenous peoples who have inhabited the territory. Therefore, the United States Supreme Court created another mechanism called the Plenary Power Doctrine to remove aboriginal title of natural resources owned by indigenous peoples. In the 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty, which is made on equal footing between the Great Sioux Nations and the United States, is proof that the Great Sioux Nations are as much as an international actor as the United States, and in fact they were military superior when the treaty was made. The United Nations therefore should validate the indigenous nations the same way they invalidate the United States status. To do so would appear only to be based on the color of our skin. The United States Congress passed the National Environmental Policy Act in 1969, which is a good example of the plenary power doctrine. And this requires that all indigenous nations which have a political relationship with the United States get adequate consultation. However, the Great Sioux Nations or any other indigenous nations that have a political relationship with the United States is not asking for consultation. Consultation is the human rights violation replacing consent. Therefore, when our indigenous peoples hear the United Nations interchange the phrase of free and prior informed consultation with free and prior informed consent, it is very disturbing for us. The second point I want to make is that the United Nations report on the Dakota Access Pipeline only addressed the concerns of the colonial governments of the indigenous peoples of the Great Sioux Nation. Did not address the families of the Great Sioux Nation that signed the treaties. It It did not address the indigenous peoples and the water protectors who suffered multiple human rights violations, such as the medics and peaceful protesters, caused some PTSD and compression grenades, which are a violation of the Geneva Convention, or indigenous media who is exercising the United States constitutional First Amendment right to freedom of speech and had thefts of expensive media equipment in violation of the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. For example, many drone operators who are covering these human rights violations were arrested and charged with crimes. Sean Turgeon, a journalist using a drone, was arrested on felony charges. He's looking at 7 years